Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Summer Meyers. I'm a homeschool mom of 5 kids, and on this channel we talk about all things homeschool. And today we're going to be talking about children's learning styles. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking it down into parts. So I've got timestamps down linked in the description so you can skip around if need be. We're going to first talk about things to consider, and then we're going to talk about actual learning styles. And then the third thing is we're going to be talking about how to identify what your kid's learning style actually is. So things to consider when we're talking about learning styles and identifying what your learning style is for your child. Make sure that you don't put them into a box and just say, this is it. This is how you're going to learn. A person is more than just one label. They are multiple things. And you need to be able to adapt to their personality, who they are as a person, to their age and what they're able and capable of doing. And so when you set them into one label, you're cutting off a chance for them to learn in multiple ways. The human brain is just so astronomically vast and we know so little bit about it. And as humans, we want to categorize things. Hello, Darwin. We love putting people in boxes and labels and stereotypes and whatever. But a person is so much more than that. And it's the same thing with learning styles. So even though your child may be predominantly one way of how they learn, make sure you're not just focusing in on that and that's the way they learn. When you reinforce concepts with more than just one way, when you make them feel it, when you make them hear it, when you make them see it, it reinforces it in a very much more rounded way and the concept sticks. So that's what I want you to think about as I'm talking about this. Do not put your kids in little boxes. Cats go in boxes. Children do not. And by that I mean cats like sitting in boxes. They don't actually, don't shove cats in boxes. So there are 3 main learning styles, and I would argue that there's kind of a 4th learning style, but it's 2 that's put together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's focus on the first main 3. The first one I want to talk about is visual. Visual people are people who they have to see it to understand it. If I read something, typically I will absorb it better. If I see something like a picture, I remember it easily. I'm able to quote movies really easily because it's a visual thing and it makes sense to me and it plugs into my brain really easily. Men typically are very visual people and they absorb things visually. Not to pick on men, because I'm a visual person too. They need to see it to understand it. So a great way for a child is to show posters, is to show movies, is to have them read something. Not you read out loud to them, they read it themselves. To see it played out and as far as math, like an abacus, seeing visually how the numbers move and are manipulated. That really connects well visually to them. Visual people also tend to get flashcards really fast. They also tend to memorize words, hymns. If they've seen it and read it, they'll remember it and it just retains. But also, I mean, be careful with this because it can also be short term. So they need to be able to see it in multiple different ways before it really clicks and stays in. The second learning style that is often talked about is auditory learning. For these people, they love audiobooks. They love hearing it. Also for movies, they love hearing it. So even though there's a big visual aspect to movies, also listening to the music impacts them. Listening to the dialogue impacts them and they remember it clearly because of that. Auditory learners also can get overwhelmed if there's just too much noise. Their brain is just absorbing so much that's coming at them. So if they're in a very busy household, it's hard for them to tune all that out because they're just hearing everything, right? Auditory learners also like to talk about it. They like discussion and speaking it out and being able to hear what the other person has to say. So if they've read something, it's not necessarily going to stick unless they talk about it with you. Sometimes reading it aloud is enough, but not usually because they're so focused on reading the words that they might not necessarily be hearing it. Having somebody reading it to them though, and they might be doodling while they're doing it or whatever, but that is how they will remember and hear it. Kinesthetic learners. I love my kinesthetic learners because I think all preschoolers are kinesthetic learners. That's just, they have to feel, touch, stomp, and eat it before they understand it. Kinesthetic learners, I think, get a bit of a bad rap because they can't sit still. They just gotta move. They gotta feel it, they've got to jump, and it's hard for them to just sit. And it's hard for them to just watch. And it's hard for them to just listen because it just doesn't make sense in their brain. It doesn't connect. As soon as they can do it themselves, so physically manipulating the numbers. Well, remember when I said for the visual people, they need to see an abacus to see how the numbers move? A kinesthetic learner needs to physically move the numbers themselves, to see how they build up, to see how they're broken down, to see how they break apart and then come back together into groups. And I'm talking all about math. I should move on. Kinesthetic learners also really love play acting and being involved in theater. So if you're doing literature, get them involved in a theater group where they can move and speak at the same time, and that will really cement it into their brain. Also, it does not necessarily mean that they cannot sit still, but they might need something to do while they're listening, while they are reading. So I've mentioned chewing gum before for fidgety learners, sucking a mint, fidget spinners, allowing them to doodle, allowing them to do those sticker books. I'll post a link down to a couple of our favorite sticker books because those are just therapeutic. They're the best things ever. I've also heard of moms with really active kinesthetic boys go out and school on the trampoline. Mom literally sitting there on a trampoline while her boys are jumping up and down, shouting out math problems to them. Mom Ward of the Year, let me just tell you. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's what makes homeschool so great and what we should embrace, that you can tailor it so close to the way your child learns. Well, fourth learning style, which is kind of like a hidden learning style, and I think it's a bit of a cheating one, but we'll go with it because I think this is kind of how I connect with the world. It's by reading and writing. So it's kind of like a visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learner. It's kind of a mixture of both because people who read it and then write it reinforces it in their brain. So this is why I think a lot of people don't count it as a regular learning style. But some children, the visual posters don't mean anything to them. Like a picture of a map doesn't mean anything to them. But when they read a story and then they write about what they read, really connects in their brain, and then they're able to pound it out, right? So that's another thing to consider. And another reason why you should never put your child in a box, because theirs could be a definite blend. Oh, they're very visual, but they're also very fidgety because they're still young. Or they are very auditory, but they're also very fidgety because they got ADD. Not to just put the fidgety kids with, everything, or they really learn visually and they talk a ton. So there's some auditory learning there going on as well. There's a blend here, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not only that, when you are teaching your children, you should be absolutely mixing and matching all of these, because as soon as you hit the brain with all of those senses, it reinforces the concept and they will remember it forever for that reason. The next task with learning styles is how to identify with your child what their learning style is. And this is where deschooling comes into place. I'll put a card and a description down below of a video I did about deschooling. This is where you observe your child. Pay attention to how they sit during a movie, how they act when they are listening to an audiobook, what they are doing during the day. Are they active? Are they constantly moving? Can they sit still and just be still during a documentary? Can they listen to an audiobook for hours and hours and hours and not move? Do they love to talk? Auditory learners love to talk. And if they are just yapping at you all the time, guess what? You've got an auditory learner. And that is how she makes connections with the world. And that is how she learns. What you need to do is give yourself, I would say, a good 2 weeks, if not more, if you haven't deschooled yet, to observe what really gets them jazzed about. Get some Kiwi crates. See how they interact with the pieces. Are they immediately going to the instruction manual and reading all the directions and that's how they are putting it together? Or are they literally taking everything on the box and trying things out and then taking it apart and then trying some other things out and then taking it apart? Are they trying to figure it out without reading the instructions? Or are they sitting there asking for help and saying, can you read this to me? Can you help me figure this out? And those are 3 distinct ways that your child is reaching out to you and how they learn and how they're going to get this right. Another way of identifying how they learn is what they get jazzed about, what they get excited about. Are they all about sports and being outside and just running? Or are they all about going to the library and just sitting down and reading a book all day? Are they really excited about going out and being with their friends? These are all cues of what kind of a learner they are. And it's easy to tag what helps them learn best. That is it for me, short and sweet. I hope this is helpful. If it was, like, subscribe, comment down below about your children's learning styles, things and tips that you have found that really help them. I'm sure there are other moms who would love to hear how your child learns and what helps them really well. And any other things that I missed that you think are important. We'd love to hear it. We should talk. All right, take it easy, everybody. Bye.